Welcome to the Next Level Podcast, powered by San Manuel, a series connecting you with the best minds in casino, hospitality, tribal government, and beyond. Enjoy the show.
Hello to everyone tuning in. Today we have Alayna Thomas with Magnet Culture. She's a retention specialist. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Serena.
Such a pleasure to have you. I know we've been trying to work on getting you on for a while. So thank you again. And we're going to start off with our first question that we do every time. Can you please share your 3-minute origin story, where you grew up, your interests, career path, and what you do today with Magnet Culture?
Yeah. So I was born in Michigan and moved to Austin in grade school. And now I am in Dallas, Texas, where I went to college. So when I came here for college, I went to the University of Texas at Dallas, and I've stayed super involved. I've even finished teaching some classes there in their HR program. So
awesome.
I'm an HR geek. My friends call me and they're like, hey, I have an HR question. Like, I'm their go-to HR at their company.
I love it.
So I did my bachelor's in HR. I did my master's in management. And then I have a mix of HR experience across different areas. So I've done 24/7 retail, I've done an internship at an airline, I worked in a nonprofit organization, and now I'm at Magnet Culture, specializing in training and development. And I have some letters after my name because I keep getting HR certifications. People love them. And I recently received one of my other HR certifications.
Awesome. When you first started working full time, what were your expectations, and then what surprised you the most when you entered the adult world?
Yes. So one thing that's probably important part of my origin story and the work that I do is that I am an old soul, but I'm a representative of this young Gen Z workforce. I'm one of the oldest Gen Zers. And usually when people learn that about me, usually it's later, it's not when we've just met, but when they learn that, they go, really? Because I feel like Gen Z is blank, 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 all these assumptions. And usually I don't fit in those boxes. But one way that I do fit in that box is what I thought the workplace was going to be like. So I came in to starting full-time work, like big eyes, thinking they hired me for all of my big ideas. And in the interview process, they said, what would you change? What would you do? And so I came into the workplace and I was like, I'm ready to change. I'm ready to do. And they said, hold your horses. Like, we don't do things that fast.
Yeah.
And I'll also say it was really an interesting timing. I graduated from my master's program and started full-time in May 2020. Okay. So I have this very distinct before, the way that I thought everything would be, the way that I did school, the way that professors and mentors and internships prepared me, versus this really drastically different environment that no one was prepared for. So right. I think my whole career has been one of shift and adjust and transition. And I'm waiting for the time that we say things are calm and good. And I think we've all discovered that consistent change is the new normal, right?
Yes. And speaking of that, I think that all of us as leaders, the flexibility and adaptability is so important. Can you touch on that and how that's been outside of COVID, how that's been a factor in your career and with your teams?
Yeah, one of the things that I am constantly asking myself is, whose perspective am I missing and what do I want next? Like, kind of those things together. And so the first question doesn't really relate a lot to flexibility, but it's important to me that I'm able to learn from a lot of different people. And so whether I've had a full-time job where more than 40 hours a week is accounted for, and I've had to fit in mentorship and learning and things like that after hours. And right now I'm in a position where I am traveling and training. And so each week looks different, and I'm able to fit that mentorship in a different way. But I don't think that's the question that you were asking. What was the question?
No, okay. That's fine, because I was going to pull on mentorship is so important. One, like having a good one for yourself and then paying it forward in your career, right? So who has been that mentor for you and that really helped pave your career path and the way you're going? And what was it about them that made that happen?
One of my first bosses, when I was interning in that 24/7 retail space, she was my boss while I was an intern. And then she was the one that gave me that full-time opportunity. And what made this person such a mentor to me is that she never assumed and she always asked questions. So I didn't know what I had. I said it earlier. I had this idea of what my career would look like, and I had mapped it out in college classes and with career advisors, like all the things that because they want you to have a job and stick with it, right? And then all of that changed. And so she would continually ask me, what is something that you are working towards right now? What is something that feels comfortable? What's something that's uncomfortable? Why is it uncomfortable? And is it okay for us to stick in that? I mean, I just remember she would ask me all of those questions. And I use this phrase that not only was she my boss and mentor, but she was a very magnetic leader to me. I ended up following her, staying in touch with her, and there was an opportunity at another company that she went to work for. And I said, can I apply for that? Because I am so interested.
Yeah. What were the most influential moments at the start of your career that led you to where you are today and the success you have today?
So when I started full time, I said May 2020. I had been interning, I'd been doing projects. I thought that I would be sort of the go-to onboarding HR person for this new office that we had. And that shifted very drastically. I finished my internship and I was the COVID hotline for 10,000 hourly employees. Because that's what we needed to do.
Sounds so fun.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, my friends would joke because we ended up being remote at that time, usually in person. So the office phone forwarded to my cell phone. And if my friends called me, like they would get my really professional voicemail, So anyway, it's hard to say exactly what about that was such a game changer, except for the fact that no one ever thought anyone would be doing that. But that was really influential because it was the first time that I learned that what was on my job description was not what I was going to be doing all the time. That one bullet point that says, and whatever your leader requests as needed.
Yes.
Like that was something I thought when I joined the workplace and joined my job, that it would be what was on the job description. And so that was some of my, I wanted to know what the rules were, and it was, concrete. And I was like, I'm sure that I said, but that's not my job. And of course, my people around me are like, this kid, like, are you kidding me?
Right.
But that's just, I said everything that I thought, because in the interview process and in my mentors, everyone asked me in private conversations what my opinions were. I just didn't realize that those are supposed to stay in private conversations.
Yeah. For sure. That's like a learning at the beginning of your career. I think we all learn the do's and don'ts, right? And about the job description not matching. Because I remember I started off as a probation officer, and I thought I was going to get these kids and their caseloads and helping them stay out of the system. And then on my first day of orientation, I'm in a detention center. And I'm like, wait, what am I doing here? In maximum security. And I'm like, oh, I'm starting my job in here. This was not in the job description. Yeah. So I think we all go through that. And that comes back to the being flexible, adapting, because all those experiences give us, the knowledge and to do our job to the best that we can. Right. So I think it all is part of the learning process.
Absolutely.
And speaking of that, looking back, is there anything you would have done differently early in your career?
What wouldn't I have done differently, right? Just like think back, you're like, that question, it opens so much. I wish that I had asked more questions. I think that's who knows if that would have changed the trajectory of my career in any way. But if I had spent more time asking, not why do we do it that way, which I don't think that's how I sounded, but close, but instead, like, what's the history of this? Why do we do it that way? I think I could have had more impact and influence in this small HR role that I had. I think it's a blind spot for many HR professionals, is this, especially emerging, this idea that I'm going to change the world and I'm going to do all these things, and forgetting that there's a reason that we have certain policies, practices in place. I also would have stuck with discomfort for longer. I think because of how quickly things were changing, a question that my boss asked our entire team frequently was, what do you want to do next? Like I said, that mentor to me. And I didn't ever filter that to say, well, here's what I'd like to do next, maybe in a year from now, after I've learned more of this. She took that as, okay, great, let's get Alayna in a new position in the next 3 months, 6 months. So I can't say that I'm not grateful for all of those
Right.
learning opportunities. It made me who I am today. It gave me the experience. But a lot of, even my parents said, and people that I know said, you are more, I feel like you're working harder than I am, or you are more stressed than I am, or you've had more jobs in 5 years than I've had in my entire career, because that's just how things shifted so much.
And how has that shaped who you are today? All the changes and the different jobs.
I love it's interesting. You'd think that I would love change because of that. Or maybe I think that for myself. I definitely am always thinking this what's next question. So not necessarily what's next at another organization, but okay, what's the next project? What's the next opportunity here? I don't think of growth as like lateral this way. I think of it as a career lattice, so I'm like, what's next? What can I do next? I think another piece is I've sat in a director of HR role. That was a wild experience that I've had already so young and so early in my career because of me saying I'd be interested in that and the opportunities and the way that I showed up. So it's influenced me today because I can say that I've sat in that seat. I have reported to a CEO. I've also worked in the stores and been, on the ground. I've done this. I've done not HR. It's cool. It's a cool mix.
What are you most passionate about?
My mantra, my mission statement for what I do is to remove hurdles that keep people from thriving. So in an HR space, what that looks like is what's a policy that we've had in place forever, because that's how we do it here, that is actually not benefiting anyone. It's not benefiting the bottom line. It's not benefiting the customer. It's not benefiting the employee. And is that a barrier that, especially when I was wearing that decision maker HR hat, is that something that we could change? And it would actually be mutually beneficial now for everyone.
So you spoke about hurdles and briefly about COVID. Outside of that, what are some hurdles you faced in your career journey and how did you overcome them?
One of the biggest hurdles was kind of the big question of ethics and what is right. Within HR, kind of you're meant to be, and I don't mean to keep talking about HR for those who are listening that are like, I could care less. I'm not doing HR. But haven't we all had that moment in our career we were faced with here's what I think is right and here's what I'm being asked to do, and trying to decide how to get there. So that has been one, and I don't want to talk too much about that for the sake of confidentiality and things like that. I made the choice that I believed was right in the moment. But other hurdles were schedule. I think early on, within my first year, I was promoted from a non-exempt or hourly role to a salaried role. And there's no guidebook to that. In the organization I was in, I went from religiously clocking out every day because that's what I was supposed to do for lunch to, if you don't work through lunch, you're going to be taking all your work home with you. So the hurdle for me of being usually the youngest in the workplace without, I don't know what I don't know. What a unique opportunity, but also, is that a dumb question to ask? Should I ask that? I guess everyone else around me is staying until this long, and I guess I'll cancel plans with my friends for dinner because I'm supposed to be here, and just not knowing how to navigate that. Those would be a couple big ones.
I think that comes back to where you said that opportunity where you could have improved was asking the questions, right? I think that's part of that. I think a lot of us don't know when we go from hourly to salaried position, we don't know the expectation. We just have heard it from others, but until you're living it and breathing it, you really don't know the impact that has on your life, and just you're leaving right at 5 versus leaving at 6 or 7 or taking it home or whatever. And you kind of have to find that balance, right?
I was just at a networking event. My partner's in technology, and Dallas has a ton of technology people. So it was out in tech networking event, and someone there, just, I saw myself in him, like this bright-eyed guy, Ryan, and he said, I don't understand. Like, no one takes a lunch break. Am I don't want to like fall behind because I'm not taking it, but like,
I need to eat.
I need to eat. And it was so funny because here I am already. I mean, I've got, right, I said, so I've been full-time for 5 years, but been working for a lot longer than that. That even 5 years ago, I was taking lunch every day. And now here I am only 5 years into my career. And I can't tell you the last time that I
went for a lunch.
Yes, I went for a lunch. And so I'm like, I want to stay connected to the people who are brand new to this industry, to this company, to this role, to be able to say, what's something that we do that's kind of odd, or what's a silly question that you have, because it could actually be the root of some major culture issues or expectations that are stealthy and that we haven't communicated.
Right.
And I mean, doesn't that get us into trouble? We don't communicate these expectations. We're just like, you did it wrong. And you're like, I didn't even know that was something you were looking at.
But that's why I think it's so important to stay connected with teams, whether it's somebody new or someone who's been here for a while, and then building that trust and that foundation for people to ask questions that they might not normally feel comfortable asking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of, what has been your pull and motivation that's kept you energized? You touched on a few different things that you're passionate about, but when you're struggling, what is that drive that gives you, that re-energizes you?
I really care about the impact. And I've learned that a lot of things take a lot longer, right? Than you take me at 18. I thought change happened in 1 month, and now I realize that, to have an impact on one employee could take 2 whole years that you see their growth, or it could take 5 years or 10 years. So for me, I go back to that question of who is impacted by this positively, and have I seen small signs of that impact rather than, the small wins, short-term wins, that type of thing. And another is actually this opportunistic view that people say when you're younger in your career. Honestly, I think just when you're younger, period, whatever someone thinks younger is, they say you have your whole life ahead of you. And then I don't know at what point that changes. I don't think it's fair that we flip the switch and we tell someone, oh, yeah, it's all downhill from here. Like, what is that about? It's just so silly. But so far, all the messages people out external from me are motivating me and telling me, oh my gosh, imagine, just stick through this challenge, or try that thing. Why not do that when you're done with work? Why not go volunteer or be on a board of directors? Because you've got time and energy. Go do it. So I think those external voices as well as that internal drive for me.
No, that makes sense. I think that's why it's important to have our network of advisors, right? Our people that we talk to, get advice from, our cheerleaders, both personally and professionally. So, how do you prioritize within an industry and a world that's moving so fast?
I love knowing the big picture and kind of the small finish lines if I can. Of course, there are things that we don't know, but if we start a new project, we think about project prioritization, right? We can have, especially the organization I work for, we can have like 20 plus projects at any given time. And some of them are due right now. And some of them are the when time projects. And some of them are like, if you're bored on a Friday, those type of things. I think I prioritize professionally based on the goals that we've set. So the organization I work for uses EOS traction framework, and we set these big quarterly goals, and then we each yearly goals, quarterly goals, and we also have a 3-year view. So that's one side of it. But the other side of how I prioritize when things are always changing is every single year I actually do some might call it cheesy, but I do an activity on what my values and my personal priorities are. And those have shifted for me. When I started doing this practice in college, and family was one of my top priorities at that time. I wanted to go home on the weekend and see my siblings, and I wanted to, financial stability was ridiculously important to me. I was like, I will work as many hours. I just need to build my savings, and I want to be able to buy things that I want to buy. And I would say now, this is very different than for other people. Financial stability is no longer my number one value. Instead, learning and growth is a value for me. So I do that activity every year. And then as I kind of decide on the commitments that I'm going to make for the year, it has to plug into those values.
No, that is very important, because here we do vision boards sometimes as a team. And I think that's also important because you don't realize like how much things change and shift from one year to the next, right? And then also what things you can check off that you completed, right?
Yeah.
Because you're moving so fast, you don't celebrate the wins.
Yeah. And I actually have my vision. I do vision boarding as well. And I have it right there. So it's like on this wall behind my computer.
Yep.
And one thing that for anyone that's like, maybe they don't like it as much, or they think, well, if you're always reassessing your values, then how can I count on you as an employee? How can I know what you want to do? I think that a really strong leader, if you're in that leader seat, you're able to say, hey, I see that this thing is shifted for you and this thing is shifted. And well, we can't fully change your role, or we can't change all of this. I'd love to give you an extra project this year. Or is there something that I could take off and you two could flip?
Yeah.
And then actually you're building more of that cross-functional skill building in your team anyway. So it doesn't have to be an all or nothing.
Right.
And that's important for people to know. Like in your career, it's not an all or nothing every time. It is what matters to me and what's a non-negotiable, and finding somewhere in between.
Yeah. And I think just hearing, listening, and supporting no matter what, right?
Ooh, I love that.
So, yeah. What has helped you be successful in your position today?
My team. I'm a very collaborative person. So having people to mentor or guide and say, hey, shortcut. This took me 10 years to figure out. Let's see if it can take you 10 months. Already something like that has been really helpful. I ask a lot of, not the theme, right? I ask a lot of questions. It's probably very annoying to some people, and I get it. I'm not everyone's cup of tea, but I just want to know how things work. And so I ask questions to people who sit in a formal advisor role in my life, like parents, mentor, counselor, right, therapist. I ask friends who don't work in corporate at all. Mm-hmm. They're like, I have friends who are speech pathologists that are like, what are you talking about? What is that conflict? Like, I work with a kid and we're just trying to get them to say their T's right. Not just, but they're like, your conflict, that's so different. So I try to get those different perspectives and to use that to kind of expedite how quickly I can learn something, and how I can respond more effectively. I see myself as a facilitator more than an expert, because I'm not an expert. So I think of this, great big world ahead of me as, gosh, I know so little right now. And just try to say, hey, I heard this, and try to piece things together like that. But can you ask that question one more time?
No, I think you answered it, because I was going to pull on something else actually.
Great, perfect.
You spoke about your team. And my question though, just because I don't want to ignore what you said. The question was, what has helped you be successful in your position that you're in today?
Okay.
But you mentioned your team, and I think the team is very, very important. What do you feel goes into building a successful team, and what do you look for in potential candidates?
Okay. It is so easy to hire people who think like you. You gel with them, especially in an interview. They're the people that you're drawn towards. Like when I've been in that recruiting seat, I get it. And I actually challenged myself when I was in that director of HR role not to hire someone. I was hiring my replacement. I was an HR generalist. I was hiring my replacement, and there was one candidate that I was more biased towards. I was like, I just think we gel. But she didn't fill any of the gaps that I had. I knew that there were a couple things about me. And one thing that everyone that has ever worked with me will say is I am only detail-oriented when it comes to people. I am not naturally detail-oriented. I have to build a million systems and cheats and all those things. I have to check my work a million times. So try to figure out what your gap is. You have to be aware of that first. and then try to find that in a team if you get the chance to hire. Let's say you don't get the chance to hire. You've inherited the team that you have. That happens a lot. Or you join a team. Just find the people already on that team that have different skills, different ways of thinking, and set up like a weekly time with them. That's what I do. I've got, there's someone in operations on my team. I have weekly time with her. I have weekly time with the person in sales, with the person in logistics, so that I know how they're thinking, and I can connect what I do to what they do. And I think as a leader, if I can, give different perspectives, but as a leader, you are the facilitator of that. Your team might not have built that trust. We were talking about trust earlier, Serena, mm-hmm. right? Like if your team doesn't have that trust, who's taking the lead to build that on your team? Oh, right. If you're looking around and you're like, it's you. Okay. Yeah. If no one else is, I'd encourage anyone to say it's you. And it could be as small as saying at the beginning of a meeting, or when you see everyone, hey, we haven't caught up on like how people are doing outside of this project. How is everyone? And that can be the first step.
No, I love it. It is so important. What skills do leaders need to effectively lead today's workforce that's full of people from all ages?
So I've been hinting at ages. I talked about it earlier. I was talking a bit about some of that. I don't want to use such a bold word, but that ageist messaging at a certain point, right? That you're less valuable, you're more valuable, or when you're young in your career, you're naive until you hit 40. I mean, like these messages go all over the place. And I think it creates a lot of this us versus them. And it's just like the most prevalent thing that I'm seeing with conflict right now is us versus them. But the guys that I'm hearing the most is, well, it's a generational thing. It's these young people don't want to work. And these, that's the main one that I hear. These young people don't want to work. They're not loyal, all of these things. So when leaders hear that and they are navigating this, you're almost like looking out at your team and you see like arguments and fighting, or you're picking up on really small things. Instead of going immediately to, well, there's this group of people that won't comply with what we do. Right. And right now the scapegoat is the youngest worker. And guess what? I think it's always going to be the scapegoat. It's the person that just got here. It's their fault, because it can't be our fault because we've been here and it's been fine, even if it hasn't. Being able to get curious about any emotion or things that are coming up. Why are we assuming that it is that younger person in the workplace, or that's that older person that's causing an issue? To give a more specific example, right. So if I come in, I'm like Ryan, the one that's like, why don't we take a lunch break? Right. So Ryan comes in, he says, why don't we take a lunch break? Instead of being like, well, Ryan, that's just how we do it here. Okay. We don't take lunch breaks. Saying, why do you ask, Ryan? What do you think? I never noticed that we didn't do that. What's your perspective? Even if you don't take that, to be able to be more informed. Yeah. You hear it. And now actually you have an inside scoop as to how the things that your employees are talking about, because you actually asked the question and listened. There are so many times that I thought I would have told my leader that if they had asked me, but I didn't know when to bring it up. And I still think that. I think I always will, as an employee, be trying to figure out, does my leader want to know that? They haven't asked me, and I'm learning how to share the things that I think are the most important for them to hear, even if they don't ask.
You talked about sharing and issues and so forth. So when team members bring up personal issues, how do you support them while still getting the job done and not kind of crossing those sticky lines?
It's so sticky, isn't it? It's this. So not only am I hearing like this us versus them, but part of that is, why don't these younger folks understand that you leave this stuff at the door? Like, okay, we don't talk about that at work. But how did we learn that lesson? I think that there actually were mantras. There was, whether, like teachers and parents were saying, oh, you don't talk about that at work, right? It was money and politics and religion and all those things, that like you got the lesson. Yeah. No one ever thought to tell me that. So I've learned, we don't talk about that at work, because I say it and someone goes, we don't talk about that here. But I do think right now, you're talking about the personal challenges. Employees of all ages are bringing more and more to work, and this line is being blurred, whether that be from like our access, people can reach us at any time. So is it that like work and life has crossed? I think that's a big part of it. I think another part is societally, we are talking more about mental health and whether or not I've learned, actually it's shocking to me initially, I've learned that that's controversial. I didn't know until I talked about it at work and someone says, no, don't talk about that. But people are being more bold to say, hey, this is why I'm not as focused today. I've got this thing going on, bringing this in. Or someone who maybe doesn't have that filter is saying, oh, I just can't stop thinking about this situationship that just ended with this friend. And it's like this, it's the biggest thing that's ever happened in their life.
Right.
They want to tell it to you as their leader, as your coworker. But you're like, this isn't work related. So how do leaders handle that? I think it's this balance of empathy and accountability. So the first piece is, even if you disagree with it, even if you think we shouldn't be talking about it at work, thanks for telling me. Or, gosh, I didn't know that was going on. Or, thanks for trusting me with this information, or anything, just to validate and to say, hey, I hear you. And then the accountability is, how do we get this back to the work conversation? So one question you could ask is, why are you sharing this with me? Hey, as your leader, I don't have the skills to really help you through this situation, but why are you sharing this with me? Or is there something that you need from me? What can I do to support you? Or you can be as direct as saying, I'm struggling to understand how this is work related right now. And what I need you to do is this. So help me understand. And I'm just giving different language for different leaders.
No, and I also think that that's a great opportunity for to refer team members to the resources that you have at your organization, because I think sometimes people don't realize everything that's at their fingertips. So that might just be the perfect opportunity to connect them with, I know some places have EAP, or through your insurance, there might still be some type of counseling for issues like mental health. So I think it's just, one, letting them know, I heard you. I'm not the person to give you expert advice on this, but we have these amazing resources that might help you or your family, right? Yeah. So I think that's a good pivot for that as well.
Oh, excellent. And and especially if if you can figure out what they're asking, then you can kind of point them to the right resource. But some leaders will say, I don't want to ask any follow-up questions because I already think we shouldn't be talking about this.
Right.
And so just, again, remember that balance of kind of validate, say, I heard you, and then redirect and try to.
And you can redirect to HR, because HR has all the resource, right? So.
Exactly. When I was in that 24/7 retail organization, they realized that their leaders were being asked to handle all these conversations because their employees were bringing it to them, right? You've got hourly employees of all ages. And so HR made it a big project to build their first ever mental health training for leaders. So it was, hey, here's what we expect you to do in this situation. And it was so basic. A lot of leaders said, oh my gosh, really, that's all I needed to do was point them to this team or this resource. But they didn't know because we didn't communicate that expectation. And we've now done the same thing at Magnet Culture, as we've built a class to help fill this skills gap specifically. And it's just one of those that if leaders have to do it, right, and we're not giving them the tools to do this new thing well, then we can't be mad as an organization that things have crumbled or people are leaving because they don't feel supported by their leaders, because we didn't teach the leaders how to support the way that we want them to.
But that's why I think that communication and training is so essential in any organization, big or small, to kind of help everybody be on the same page.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that about teaching. What advice do you give to your up and coming new professionals, college students, however you want to frame it?
Yeah. So I have, I've taught an intro to HR class for like anywhere from freshmen to seniors. I have a mix in that class. And then I also have taught an upper level HR class. And I learned the advice is the same. It doesn't matter where someone is in their journey of joining the workplace. What I tell them is so many of the things that I said before about being curious, but I also tell them, hey, I learned the hard way, and you're going to also learn the hard way, that there are a lot of negative perceptions that you will have to overcome in the workplace. And this is true of any company you work for, even later in your career. For some reason, people go to the negative, right? We always say assume positive intent, but when we have a bad day, we're like, oh, that person.
When you watch the news is primarily
yes,
negative.
You watch the news, you listen to your podcast on the way into work, and you're thinking, oh, I just can't handle this, right?
Yeah.
So I just tell them, hey, it is not necessarily personal, like these negative perceptions. It could be the employee that came before you that caused the whole team to not trust the situation or not, don't take it personally, but ask questions and be patient, right? Change doesn't happen in a week.
Right.
It probably won't even happen.
That's so key for the younger generation, because I have 2 kids in college, fresh out of college, and I think it is the patience part, because everything is at their fingertips right now, and it's like everything's not going to be immediate, and it's just teaching that. I feel like my generation, that wasn't such a huge point, because we did have to, you go to the library, you have to look up a card catalog, you have to go find the book. Whereas now it's like you can go on the computer. So it's something that you have to teach them that's not going to come naturally, because they're used to everything being kind of instant.
And when I joined, this pace of change thing is kind of hard for me to wrap my head around, because I learned that work was slow and change takes time. But then I also saw my organization switch everything within a matter of a week and a half in March 2020. And so I understand, because I had that work experience before and after and in different roles. But what about for the person that was in high school at that time?
Right.
They never had work experience, or maybe even middle school, right? I don't know when people start working, depending on their situation, right? But if they've seen, that you can make these changes super fast and work can be done remotely and blah, 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 the whole list, then when someone says, we can't do that fast,
they don't understand why.
The first question they're going to ask is why.
Yeah.
And that's not a sign of disrespect. That's not a sign. It is genuine. Like, I am trying to put these pieces together in my head. Yeah. So leaders, please, you be patient too, just as 100%. It goes both ways.
It does. And speaking of advice, any advice you give to your 18-year-old self fresh out of high school? When it comes to your career and leadership?
I think it's okay to have an incredible opportunity and to say, not right now. I'm going to stick with this commitment that I made. I talked about this huge time of transition that I've been in.
Yeah.
And I've said it a couple times. I just wish that I had stuck with situations that weren't as great, because I thought the grass was greener. There was another opportunity. There were these things. But I also think that to 18-year-old me, 18-year-old anyone, you also have to discover for yourself that the grass isn't always greener. Yeah, Serena, you could go and tell your kids the grass isn't always greener, but they don't care. They're like,
they have to live
I don't care. It's like, nothing,
Right.
It's like, what things have I told my mom that I'm like, I'm sorry that I just made you feel like you didn't know anything, because you did tell me so. But I had to figure it out myself.
Right. Exactly. We all do. That makes sense. All right. Shifting gears a little bit. What trends are capturing your attention right
now? So this year, shift in the workplace. I do a lot of generational work at Magnet Culture. 2025 was the first time that Gen Z has outnumbered boomers in the total US labor force. So it's a shift that we've seen coming for a long time, but now we have a dwindling baby boomer population and a growing Gen Z population in the workplace. So that's a big one. The other, I will not talk about politics, but we know that anytime that we have a change in administration, we're going to see new things. And so it's hard, because I know HR teams as well as leadership teams that thought they would have certain goals for this year, and those have shifted. And so I think we should probably acknowledge, right? It's okay for our priorities to be changing already this year. We don't have to stick with the same priorities that we had made a year ago. I think being able to, we don't pencil anything in anymore because we do everything on the computer, but to be able to think about things as penciling it in, and that we could edit that. And one more trend that I'm trying to figure out, is it generational? Is it not? Longevity in the job is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So a role that used to have someone in it for 3 years, we are looking at 1 year. A role that someone was in it for 5 years, you're seeing 2, right? And that type of thing. So do we have to completely rethink hiring and recruiting and retention, I think we do. I think we could keep saying, well, it's just this group of people or it's just this. But if we've set up our organizations and roles that this is a role that you're in for 5 years, are you going to find talent to actually fill that role for 5 whole years? Or do we have to get more agile? I have a couple dear friends who challenge me. And I have a friend that has just left her third job in 3 years. And she, I did it. I'm so proud. I put in my letter of resignation. I'm like, what are you doing? What's your next job? It's like my old soul coming out that I'm like, that's not responsible. What are you doing? And that's my knee-jerk reaction. That would make me a horrible friend, right? If I led with that. But I'm trying to get to understand why she is making some of these big decisions so quickly. And the big thing that she says is, well, there was nothing in it for me anymore.
Oh.
What's in it for me is the big question. And gosh, that is so hard for employers. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
But didn't we ask that same thing? Didn't you all ask that same thing in your career? Just your answer was the same as the people around you. The answer was a paycheck and job stability. And
Right.
maybe now that's less important to this emerging workforce. And we can keep saying, well, that should be important to you. Or we can say, well, what is important to them? And again, with the hurdles, what are the things that we have in place that maybe we could shift and then we'd keep people longer in that way.
And when we're talking about what do you see emerging, what trends are capturing your attention, what are you most excited about for the future?
I love the question why I'm challenged, this question of why do we do it this way, I think is a question we all should ask every single day of everything that we do. Honestly, it's getting to the root of it. I think we're going to finally fix some long-term problems that have led to some of the staffing shortages and high turnover that we have today. But I also think it's the way that we will be more innovative as organizations. We will actually beat our competition. If you can listen to your employees that have the fresh perspective, even if you don't agree with it, can you entertain it for a month and see if you make any shift? You can look up some different airlines, but some of the airlines that do things differently do them differently because they had an intern or a new hire who said, why do we push around this huge cart that's costing us extra money in gas and fuel. We don't say gas for a plane, but fuel for a plane. And so you'll notice some airlines don't use those and they're actually saving money on fuel just because someone asked, why do we do it that way?
Yeah.
So it really can benefit everyone.
And sometimes we might not be able to take all of the ideas the way that they are presented, but we may be able to take pieces of it, right? And and by listening and entertaining what folks are saying, we're encouraging them to keep being creative, keep pushing the box. And so I love it. I think creativity and being curious is really important. It makes us a differentiator within our business.
Yeah.
All right. Let me see. I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions.
Okay, great.
What is your source of creative inspiration?
Music. I'm in a choir here in Dallas. I was in choir since middle school. I took a little break. And when I'm in a rut, I open Spotify and I listen to music and I see what Spotify has for me today with its Discover Weekly.
I love it. I love music. I always have. What's your most memorable trip?
Italy and Spain. I went to those in the last couple years, my first time traveling internationally for fun. And I got to do it with my fiance, and just the ability to see a very different and slower pace of life and how so many people just lived differently at a slower pace. It was just wonderful.
What's your next international trip?
We will see. But I'm hoping that we can go back to kind of Germany and some areas that my fiance had been studied abroad in that I haven't had the chance to see. And I'm also biracial. I'm half South Asian. And so I would love to go back to Kerala, the state that my family's from in India. Is it my internet connection? I'm not sure if you can hear me.
Hey.
Hi.
Sorry. So I'm gonna start over with asking you where you want to go on your international trip. My internet went in and out. I'm so sorry.
Awesome. No,
Okay.
you're totally good. Editing is beautiful and magical.
Okay, so this is a pause for my team. What's your next international trip?
I'm hoping to go back to some of my favorite places, both in Italy and Spain would be fun. But my fiance studied abroad in Germany, and my mom's side of the family is from Germany. So I want to go there and then eventually make my way back to India. My dad's side of the family is from India and would love to go back and see some extended family there.
I'm from India. I'm actually full East Indian. My parents were both born there, but then all my family migrated to England.
Oh my goodness, that's so fun. Yes,
we'll
it is.
Connect offline. I'll give you some tips. Okay.
Absolutely.
Book recommendations?
Game-changing book for anyone that you know that's in their 20s is Quarter Life Breakthrough. Is it even called Quarter Life Crisis? No, I think it's Quarter Life Breakthrough by Adam Smile Pozwalski. It is full of all those values activities that I was talking about, and I've recommended it to every single student of mine that's trying to discover what's next in their career.
Love it. A favorite quote?
Mother Teresa. It's on my LinkedIn. It's not if you know better, do better. It is the quote that let them anyway. Okay, give me a pause. Let me go find it, and then I'll have you ask that.
We'll try people go visit Alayna's LinkedIn for the quote.
Perfect. Thank you.
A daily routine that has benefited you that you would recommend to others.
Drinking water. Very good thing to do. And for me, especially if you sit at your desk a lot, going to refill your water often, it's just a really great thing to do. Use that time to process, like step away and think about something. It's small, but it's been a game changer.
No, and I think it's good to move your body around, get your steps in, get re-energized.
Yeah.
Something on your bucket list.
To go to all 50 states here in the US. I'm very close. I've got a scratch off map, and magnet culture training does take me to a lot of those states, which is helpful.
Love it. Okay. I'm going to end with our ending question every time. 3 tips that you would provide to anyone who wants to take their career to the next level.
Okay. The first, be curious about the history before you suggest a future change or something different. The second is there's no perfect employer and there's no perfect job. You will learn that over time. The question is what matters to you, what is non-negotiable, and how can you keep the commitments that you have made even when times are tough and things are changing. And the third piece of advice, gosh, it's hard to narrow it down to pick one. Something that my mentor shared with me is people talk about you at the dinner table. What do you want them to say? So whether you are a coworker or a leader, thinking about the person that you want to show up as every day and knowing that people are measuring you. They're looking at you, they're judging you, because that's what we do. Can you find that the things that they go home and they say about you are that you're fair and that you're kind and that you get things done, whatever matters to you? Continue to put that at the forefront of your focus every day.
Thank you, Alayna. And is there anything that we didn't cover that you want to touch on before we end today?
Sure. I will say one last thing. So I love doing generations focused and retention focused work. That's what I do in my role as retention strategist. So if anyone is curious and wants to continue the conversation about how things have shifted generationally in the workplace, how in the world do you keep people who really like to job hop or keep people of different values that change all the time? Let's talk about it. I know we didn't have enough time to cover all of that today.
Well, thank you so much. And again, thank you for joining us. And thank you everyone for tuning in.
Check out more episodes at thenextlevelcareers.com.